Hi friends! This week we'll be creating a landscape collage. I'm showing you the example here, and what you'll need for this assignment is your stack of construction paper colors that you received, and then the black piece of paper, which is like a half sheet, will be our background for this piece. You're also going to need a pencil, your scissors, and you should have a small glue bottle in your bag. Get all of these things out and let's take a look at the landscape that we're going to create. We'll create our landscape using the method of collage. Remember that collage comes from the French word that means to glue. So it makes sense that we'll be cutting papers and gluing them together to create our landscape composition. A landscape is one of our general themes of art. Landscape is any picture where the land is the main subject matter. Typically, when we see landscapes, we see things like trees, rivers and lakes and oceans, mountains and hills and valleys, and the sky. Within any landscape, there are a number of different parts. First, we have the background. The background is typically the sky. It's the things happening the furthest away in our landscape. Because of that, our background will happen at the top of our paper. Then we have the middle ground. The middle ground are the things that are happening in the middle of our paper. So in this case, we see some mountains and some faraway trees. We also have the foreground. The foreground are the items that are closest to us in this picture. In this case, we have our little lake here and some other trees. The foreground is the closest to us at the bottom of the paper, and you can see as we get further up our paper, we get further and further away from us. Another important term for a landscape is a horizon line. Horizon line is the line that separates our ground or our land from our sky. The horizon line separates the ground or the land from the sky. There's a few things that we do in creating our landscape to help map out the space and to depict all of the relationships that the items in our composition have within that space. To help do that, we show depth within our work. Depth in a landscape refers to the distance. In our landscape might have just a little bit of depth. We might only depict something that would maybe take you, say, 5 minutes to walk from one end to the other end of the land in your landscape. In this case, looking at this landscape, I have mountain upon mountain upon mountain upon mountain. It would probably take me hours, if not days, to walk from what's depicted in my foreground all the way to the background. To help show depth and the spatial relationships between my land, my trees, my water, and my mountains, I will overlap the different elements in my work. By overlapping my different mountains here, we know which mountains are closest to me versus which mountains are the furthest away. Because the objects that are the closest to me will be in front of the objects that are farther away, which will be behind. One last term that we can use that's important for helping show depth and space within a landscape is by using our color strategically. We'll be using different values of the same color to show that depth, what is closest to us versus what is further away. Value refers to the lightness or the darkness of a color. A lot of times in art, we use value to help show shadow, to show the three-dimensional form of an object, where we might shade the part that's out of the light. Within a landscape, we see that the value of the color gets lighter and almost looks like it fades the further away from us that we go. So as we cut our different papers, we'll be paying attention to putting the lighter colors further away from the darker colors in the different segments of land that we're depicting within our landscape. As we're cutting out the different segments of our landscape, think about the different line styles you see used to help show trees, water, and our mountains or hills. We learned about two different artists that create very simplistic and kind of color-blocked landscapes. The painter Atel Adnan, who uses just a few simple colors and basic shapes and lines to break up the space within her landscape paintings. And then Aaron Draplin, who this piece is a little more inspired by. He is an artist and a designer who created these thick line paintings to be used in some of his skateboard and snowboard decks. That's the underside of the skateboard or the snowboard, where people like to express themselves with an artistic part to their board. While this is just color blocked in a very simple way, I want to point out one more thing that's important about landscapes. When you're creating a landscape, the things that are closest to you will have the most detail, and the things that are further away may just be color. So maybe we'll envision that our entire landscape is very far away. Because if we had trees that were close up to us, we would see specific details like branches and leaves. Or think about a flower. A flower close up, we would see the petals and maybe even the center part of our flower and our stems and our leaves. But if a flower is farther away in our landscape, we may only know that it's a flower simply because of that pop of color, that dot of color that might represent the flower far away within our landscape. So let's review our terms one more time. A landscape is a subject matter in art. Landscapes historically have been painted for hundreds and hundreds of years. Our landscape shows the land and the sky as the main parts of a piece of art. Within our landscape, we have the background, which are the things that are the furthest away from us. Typically, the background may represent the sky. Then we have the middle ground. We have the things that are happening towards the middle of our paper. And then we have the foreground. The foreground shows the objects that are the closest to us within a piece of art. Our foreground is at the bottom of our paper, and gradually as things get further away, they move up our paper. The horizon line is that imaginary line that separates the land and the sky. As we create our landscape, we are showing the space in our work. We use depth to show distance. We overlap our objects to show the depth and the space relationship between the different components of our composition, like our trees, our mountains, our sky, and our water. We also pay attention to the color value. The further away something is from us, the lighter in color it will appear. Even if you were to walk all the way close to it, it might still be the same color green. It is actually the atmosphere that helps change that value and make that color appear lighter in value. Now it's time to create your own landscape. Within your landscape, you'll use your black piece of paper as your backgrounds. You can see that the papers were cut to about fit perfect on the black piece. So as you cut your different segments of land, make sure that you cut them the correct width to match up with your paper. I'm going to look for multiple layers of land within your landscape. You should have layers of hills or mountains, layers of trees, and layers of water. You can also use your colors to create a sun for your sky. So you can set aside the colors and see their value relationship as we get ready to cut out our different shapes and lines to create the different elements. So first, I have my stack of papers to use for my sun. I also have a number of different colors of purple and an additional kind of dark red here to be used for my mountains. I have a few colors of blue for the water and a few colors of green for my trees. Again, remember that the lighter color should be further up, further away from the darker value color for each of your different pieces. To create my trees, I created a zigzag line to show pine trees. To create my water, I created a wavy line to show the ripples of the water. And to create my mountains, I did a bumpy line across the top to show the different mountain peaks. Then I used a circle shape of various sizes to show my radiating sun. In this case, I made my sun setting. You're welcome to make your sun however you like in your sky. The process is kind of simple. You won't need all of this paper. Feel free to cut it down to just be the individual segments to overlap so that you save yourself some extra for any other art project you might like to do at home. I'll go ahead and start with my trees first, simply because they happen to be on the top of my stack of paper here. So again, all I'm doing is creating a cut zigzag line across the top in order to make my trees. You can use your pencil to draw this line out first to make sure that you don't make any mistake. When I did this, what I did is I put both of my green papers on top of one another. And then I flipped one to give it the reverse and on my piece here. So I'll show you what I mean. So I'm gonna cut zigzag lines up and down. I don't want one straight zigzag across the top. I do want a little variety, right? I'm not gonna have the same exact tree shape all the way across. Okay, so I'll cut that part off. This is kind of a fun shape. I might sit this off to the side because maybe I'll still use it. So now if I just slide this down a bit, you can see how I've doubled up this for my trees. And I can even flip it just to create a little bit more of a difference between my two layers of trees. Okay, and like you can see, I won't need all of this down here. That's going to be covered up by my water. So I'm going to go ahead and move about 2 inches down just so I don't have any exposed area in my layers of land, and I'm going to cut this part off. Okay, so this is now a bunch of paper that I can save for another project I might want to do. So I'll go ahead and get this out of the way. So I have my 2 layers of trees here. All right, next, let's go ahead and make some water. So again, I'm going to cut this at the same time. This time, I'm just going to use a wavy line. Again, you can choose to draw out your line first, which is something I really recommend, just because it will help you be more accurate in the waves that you want to cut. And these are just kind of fun, so I'll save those just like I saved these and slide them down, and you see I already have 2 layers of my water. So I can keep it at 2 layers of water, but because I wanted to make more ripples, you could make kind of as many as you wanted. So I'm going to go ahead, again, I'm going to move down 1 inch or 2 and cut this off, add that to my landscape, although I need my light color and back of my dark color because my value changes as it gets further away. And I think I'm going to go ahead and cut at least one more layer of my water here. All right, I think that looks good for my water. So I'll get this paper out of the way as I'm moving through here. So I would like to see at least 2 colors used for your mountains. But you kind of have a lot more that you could utilize too. So I'm gonna leave it up to you exactly how many colors of mountains you want to use. I'm gonna set my dark blue or my dark red aside, and I'm gonna go with 3. So this time I want to use kind of a wavier line. I don't want it, I want a combination of these two, actually kind of a bumpier line, somewhere between a pointy, jagged zigzag line and that wavy line I used here. And I want, you know, some bigger peaks of mountains. All right, my mountain can come up and go off my page. I'm gonna go ahead and I should cut some of this off here. You can see I'm saving about half a sheet of each of my pieces. Okay, so the further away it is, the lighter in value it is. And again, I'm gonna flip-flop these a little bit. Okay, I've got my water. I've got my trees. I've got all my mountains here. The only thing I have left that I need is my sun. My sun is going to be deepest in its hue or value in the center. So I'm going to start with a circle of my red. Next, I want my orange to be larger right, and this is not a perfect circle at all, and feel free to make your sun shine how you want it to shine on your paper. All right, I've got a great sun here shining in my sky. And I even have one more color if I wanted to take it even larger. Okay, so you're going to arrange it how you want. Remember, each one could look a little bit different. Play around with how you want to organize your piece. You could have your water higher up than your trees. So you decide how to arrange your landscape. And once you're happy with the way that you lay it out, then it would be time to get out your glue. As you're gluing, think about adding the top layer onto the next layer, onto the next layer, and then adding it into your piece. Okay, so I would start by gluing my red onto my orange, onto my yellow, and then glue it onto my landscape. Once you've applied your glue to each individual piece and you've got it all glued on, I like to kind of tip it over just to make sure that everything's glued on. And when you're applying your glue, you really just need to put a nice little circle around the outside. Don't apply too much. So when I'm applying the glue to my trees, I'm going to pretty much trace the outline, not too close because I don't want my glue to spread too much. And if it's a larger section, I might put a little bit more through the middle before I glue it down. All right. That's the basics of putting together our beautiful landscape collages. I hope you have fun playing around with your cut paper and your colors as you lay out your different layers of land within your landscape. Feel free to hang on to any of your additional art supplies and make a bunch of fun, inspired pieces too. I'm going to share a few other videos for you for the rest of your week.